Hey there, YouTube community. It's Hannah. Hi. I am 100% involved in writing a book right now, and my last video, I read a little chapter of that. This that I'm going to read to you and talk about with you today is called The Death of Female Humor: How We Self-Infantilize by Declaring Everything Harassment. And this is my favorite section of my first draft, but I'm unfortunately not certain that this is going to make it into my final draft because I've kind of reorganized my thought process. And I think it's so important though. And if it doesn't make it into this book, it definitely needs to make it into a subsequent book, because this is really powerfully something that I've noticed and experienced in the workforce. And I work in helicopter aviation fueling in the field around mostly men, and that's and in the military in the past, and in a lot of sort of like trades. You know, I'm like a commercial driver for the last 26, almost 27 years. That's been how I've made a living. So the differences in how humor functions in all male environments, in all female environments, in mixed sex environments, like this is something that I've really cued in on over the years. So this is the section that I've written, and again, it's my favorite, and this needs to come out in a subsequent book, if not the one that I'm currently working on publishing, right? So The Death of Female Humor, it's got 6 sections. The first, I'll just read those to you. Humor as a male regulatory system. And this is going to be me reading, you know, and so you can kind of treat it like a little, like a mini college lecture or something like that. This is the class that I would be fucking teaching if I was. Humor as a male regulatory system is the first. The second is the feminist reframing of humor as violence. The whole thing's not too long. Number 3 is the loss of female elasticity. Number 4 is humor as a social technology that women stopped using. Number 5, humor as a great integrator between men and women. And number 6 is the feminine advantage. Humor is not submission, it's sovereignty. So those are the sections, and I'm going to read this to you. All right, humor as a male regulatory system. Humor itself is a social technology. It represents a healthy response from the emotional immune system. The war on things being funny, waged by cultural feminism, has been largely rejected by men, so we mostly see the ravages of humorlessness in the female populace. They're not interested in lightening up, so it all gets heavier and heavier. Little personal subtext on this: if you haven't seen my other videos, I'm experiencing a high degree of feminism fatigue. I love being female. I love women. I'm pretty tired of feminism. Men use humor with each other almost constantly, and it serves an astonishing range of purposes. Not only is it okay for them to do this, it's of utmost importance. I hope I've made the case by now, this is, you know, a little bit later down in a draft, right? That men regulating other men is how we all win, and humor is a major tool in their arsenal. Humor is the fastest way for men to mutually calibrate, to smooth the rough edges of their hierarchies, and to cement trust. Legitimate hardship is a chronic characteristic of men's labor, and they use humor to convey stress while encouraging rather than demoralizing their peers. Men's humor is not just a trait, it's a skill they polish, practice, deploy, and respect. Via humor, men gauge, stress test, correct, include, and warn one another. Men make the workday go by with humor, and if there's one thing men do a lot of, it's work. Women opting out of humor breaks a valuable circuit between men and women. Section 2, the feminist reframing of humor as violence. Cultural feminism, and when I say that, I mean, there's feminine, you know, it's tough to even say what feminism is, because ever since feminism became a thing, there's like 150 years basically of like feminist literature out there, and as soon as it became a thing, it started splintering off, because that's what leftist politics do. They start canceling each other and like eating each other alive, and you know, so feminism has been a prototypical example of that. Anyway, so when I say cultural feminism, what I mean is just like the literal ambient environment that we're all living in that is the sort of downstream effect of all of that, okay? Cultural feminism frames healthy masculine humor as aggression, misogyny, coercion, and danger. The degree to which we're encouraged to be offended as women is escalating and never ending. We take a microscope to normal interactions and look for microaggressions, like scientists isolating a pathogen before it can spread. We see an inexorable creep in the HRification of every job site, every workspace, every company culture. Beyond just policing arguably offensive jokes, it's now a question of surveilling whether anyone anywhere might be offended by anything or if the potential even exists. This is inevitable with increasingly granular, fragmentating identity politics. The feminizing tyranny of humorlessness is such that even suggesting a woman might, participate in a legitimate social cohesion technology is met with such ferocity. We're setting all women back if each one of us doesn't hold the line everywhere for the moral policing of men in their own spaces. Our scrutiny of male humor is so heightened that it's as if every rape that's ever transpired in the history of the planet is reoccurring in the event of a bawdy joke. Again, this is self-infantilizing behavior. This chapter is in kind of like a meta section in the book about the ways that we as women self-infantilize in cultural feminism, aided and abetted by the forces of cultural feminism. The underlying premise is that men are bad and their humor represents an attack on women. The best defense is a good offense, and thanks to infinitely metastasizing HR, that's never more than a phone call away. Number 3, the loss of female elasticity. The feminine psyche, exposed to chronically high doses of ideologically mandated humorlessness, loses its elasticity. The irony is that exactly those traits we increasingly begrudge men but virtuously assign to ourselves, playfulness, context sensitivity, pattern recognition, heightened instincts for reading tone and intent, are regressed in this maneuver, rendered nearly vestigial. We lose all sense of solving tensions at the lowest possible level, preferring to involve the apparatus of sanction in which our gender is favored. I would argue that as women, we simply aren't that funny. So our motives here are somewhat resentful. As I said, humor isn't just a trait, it's a skill. We can think of it as a language in its own right, in which men are practicing fluency from a young age. It makes sense that they would, right? It is for them to accumulate social merit tokens, being born with none. It is for us to retain our tokens, being conferred with, yes, commodified social merit from birth as females. This is something I discussed earlier in the draft, which is, ironically enough, involves the draft. I mean, if you want to look at who's sort of conferred with social merit tokens at birth and who isn't, the fact that we send all men off to be like cannon fodder in the event of a war and like women are to be protected, kind of like gives you a little bit of the landscape of like who it is that we're commodifying women, but we're also assigning them some kind of like value that we're not willing to expend them as cannon fodder in the way that we are with men. So that's when I say tokens, that's what I'm talking about. It doesn't make sense we'd specialize in being funny given our vastly different incentives in female-female dialogue. It's okay for us to not personally be that funny, and if we are, then that's an outlier. What's handicapping us in ways we're unprepared to consider is the social cost of failing to even recognize or appreciate humor for humor's sake. We're in the workforce now, whether anyone likes it or not. Again, I'm discussing all of this against the backdrop of fiat collapse and how everybody has to be in the fucking workforce now. Fiat collapse makes wage slaves of us all. And in all the ways humor serves men, regulation, stress release, bonding, calibrating, testing, no one is actually asking us to be funny, because generally we aren't. What we can be, though, is energetically unthreatening to humor itself, meaning we stop acting like humor is an existential danger to us. Men don't need us to be witty. They need us to stop collapsing the relational field with fragility theater. A woman who can hold the charge of humor, even when it's vulgar or pointed or chaotic, signals to men that she is an adult human rather than a bureaucratic hazard. This alone changes everything. Number 4, humor as a social technology women stopped using. Pivoting now from humor in men's spaces, aka the workforce, let's talk about us. Were we always this unfunny? Yes and no, I guess. Men have always been the butt of our jokes because we ourselves can't take a joke. Certainly not from another woman. It's the definition of we don't do that here. Whether we should or not is another discussion. I think it's just too upstream of our otherwise feminine bonding mechanisms. So that leaves men, our children, ourselves in relation to men and or children, each other's experiences with men, and then ourselves and each other in relation to external world, whatever, as potential shticks. That's still a lot of real estate, and there's always going to be a lot of funny women. Men's direct eye-to-eye, napalm level hazing of one another sharpens their skills beyond what's realistic for us still. Humor is frame play, and we agonize over losing control of the frame. But beyond that, the tyranny of humorlessness works because it works. An exchange is a relationship, and a relationship is only a moment in time where both people keep showing up. The person who withdraws has the upper hand energetically, and as cultural feminism increasingly valorizes that withdrawal, what's easier? Overcoming a lifelong deficit of humor skill? Or simply announcing, that's not funny. Shutting it down is our power move. We don't shut down men's humor, we just shut down their inclusion of us in their trust. Women interpret participation in humor as permission, even endorsement, rather than what it is, relational play. Masculine humor asks, can you hold your center? How about if I shove you a little? Can you still hold your center? Because if you can't, I don't trust you and I don't want you in my foxhole. The self-infantilized feminine response says, I don't understand this and therefore it makes me angry, so you have to stop. That's not funny. Number 5, humor is the great integrator between men and women. The good news is we can regulate men without moral grandstanding and without magically ascending to a Chappellian level of humor competence. We can do this by way of interpreting humor as rapport, not harassment. Humor represents consent to be fully human with one another. What do we as women really stand to gain from setting ourselves up to be the moral arbiters of humorous exchange? It's like social media but IRL. If you don't like it, keep scrolling. I know what some of us are thinking. Oh, but the workplace is toxic. It's toxic. I'm going to ride my white horse straight up to HR and make them stop being funny. I didn't find it funny, and the fact that they did find it funny proves how toxic they are. Okay, you can do that, but let's assess the tactical landscape too, like adults. For men, humor serves many important roles. For the workplace, men perform many important roles. For women, men functioning in the workplace serves many important roles, including there being a fucking workplace for us to grab a paycheck from too, fiat collapse being what it is. I'm sorry if I'm the one breaking it to you, but vulgarity and humor go together like peas and carrots. Would I insult a man's virility in the workplace? Yes. Would I insult a woman's fertility in a heart-to-heart? No. We don't do these things as women. That's why we're disoriented when we enter these spaces per force, either as a function of professional ambition or fiat collapse or both. Are we setting all women back if we adjust ourselves to a little give and take? Or are we just setting ourselves back by being such a pain in the ass to work with that it represents a net loss for men? And meanwhile, is the work getting done? Are the people getting paid? What are we doing here? Providing timely value in this sector or solving every injustice ever invented? How vulnerable are you personally that your crumbling slice of emotional safety requires the constant surveillance and scrutiny of workplace vulgarity? How many innocent bystanders have to adjust their healthy, functional patterns so that we can feel safe? If this is how we frame the problem, then there's never going to be a solution, because this flavor of outraged, chronically offended femininity never runs out of triggers. This is a form of feminine self-infantilization scaled to the level of tyranny. Solving tensions at the lowest level is not only what men do, it's what humor does, which is why there's a strong correlation there. Escalating problems up the chain is not only what women do, it's what chronic humorlessness does, which is why there's a strong correlation there. Realistically, what we get into is occupational hypochondria. I'm so special. I'm so fragile. I'm so vulnerable. Look how many resources have to be galvanized to protect me. I don't care what industry you're in. In this short-sightedness, it doesn't get shit done. And to the extent women are LARPing an occupation, we can get distracted with our role as God's chosen moral arbiters to the point of neglecting our role of helping to get shit done. So maybe ride your white horse to HR. We all handle things as we see fit. But maybe just fire back with something. Tiny Pecker says what? Whatever. Doesn't have to be a banger of all bangers. Just understand the assignment and offer some playful pushback and watch the tension dissolve. Men want to include us in good faith horseplay far more than we realize, and the deployment of humor represents a massive blind spot of rapport opportunity to the calcified, de-elasticized, feminine woke scold. Okay, number 6, final section here. The feminine advantage. Humor is not submission. Against the backdrop of abject feminine humorlessness and occupational hypochondria, it's almost impossible to overstate how far a little sauciness can go. When did we decide that our dominant role on this planet was to be the fun police? We have so much more to offer and so much more to enjoy. If we can refrain for a moment the imperative to be Schrodinger's special victims, we find that humor reopens the lines of trust with men. Humor actually diffuses escalation. It keeps both parties adult, and it demonstrates our ability to stay grounded under pressure, which is something men deeply respect. To the extent it's not our native language as females, I concur, but it is men's native language. We really have no business congratulating ourselves on our empathy or intuition as women while pathologizing such a low-stakes theater of healthy inter-regulatory exchange in an environment where no one really asked us to show up in the first place. We live in a time that has convinced us words are violence, and for some of us, it takes a lot of deprogramming to walk it back to anything functional. Masculine humor rituals, just like the workplace itself, was happening before we got there, and it will keep happening after we leave. The level of entitlement in attempting to thought police this into the ground is appalling and breathtaking in scope. Are we men? Absolutely not. Are we human adults conferred with powerful gifts of our own and comprising the other human gender? Yes. We are neither disabled nor retarded, so let's stop acting like it. If the sovereign female cannot hold the charge of humor, she cannot hold the charge of life. What a banger, right? And it's probably not going into the book, but that's what I said. This is one of my favorite sections from the first draft. It's gotta go somewhere. And for today, it went into this YouTube video. And, I thought I might talk a little bit more about it afterwards, but I actually don't, I think I said everything, I fucking said it, And it's been literally decades of working with men, working with women, working in the trades, working in all kinds of environments, under all kinds of stressors. And this section came through for me really, really powerfully because I just am all done. I'm all done with the cultural feminism, humorlessness as tyranny. I'm all done with it. So anyway, that's the video. That's the little lecture there. I hope you enjoyed it. Take care.